Okay, I guess I am. Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. Commissioner Martin, how are you doing? I see your hand up. Nope. I see, John, I see your hand up. So, you want to say something? So you need to unmute yourself if you want to say something. There you go.
I couldn't unmute myself. Now Perfect. It tells me I can. That was the problem.
All right. Well, it is, I think we have enough time. We've allowed enough time that we can start the meeting. This isn't my meeting. This is the URA. And I believe our first acts, one of our first acts would be to elect the chair and the chair of this. So when that happens, I will turn that over to him or her. But until then, Ryan, would you take a roll?
No problem. Mayor Godis.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman.
Here.
Councillor Cow. Councillor Hershey. Councillor Stepp.
Here.
Councillor Davis. Councillor Wusso.
Here.
Commissioner Martin.
Here.
Mr. Fairbanks.
Here.
School Board Rep Torres. And Mr. Churchill.
I'm here.
All right, thank you.
Charlie, do you have a point of order or a question?
No, I was going to make a motion, but I forgot about taking roll call. So.
Okay. Well, the next item on the agenda, if that might be what your motion is the election of the chair and vice chair. Now that we're on that agenda item, do you have a motion?
I do. I would move that Ingrid Wusso be appointed chair of the Urban Renewal Authority and Mr. Godis be the vice chair of the, I don't know, I guess vice chair or assistant chair of the Urban Renewal Authority.
And I'll accept that nomination. I'm curious if they need to be made in two different, no? Okay, Carl is saying no. So.
Feel free to nominate a slate. If that fails, then you can try again.
Okay.
I guess I'll second it. The silence is deafening, and I'm pretty sure it's not because people don't want Ingrid as the chair. Okay, well, I guess it's been Ingrid and has been nominated for the chair. I've been nominated for vice chair. Ryan, let's take a roll on that.
Sounds good. Mayor Pro Tem Willman.
Yes.
Mr. Churchill.
Yes.
Mr. Fairbanks.
Yes.
Commissioner Martin.
Aye.
Councillor Stepp.
Yes.
Councillor Wusso.
Yes.
And Mayor Godis.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
All right. Chair Wusso, the floor is yours.
Step right in. I'll admit that I have not run a meeting since we've been on Zoom. I've always just been kind of one of the straggling participants. So it looks like, according to the agenda, I need to see a motion to approve the minutes from both January 2nd, 2020 and January 16th of 2020.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. A correction of the minutes for January 16th, 2020, if I may.
And what should that correction be?
It should be that Tate and John were late for the meeting due to fail to notify of room change. Even on the agenda, it says the third floor, and I think the meeting was moved. So I need a clarification for that because we were there early. Right, Tate?
I would agree with Mr. Martin, Commissioner Martin. That's exactly what happened. I do recall that.
I agree.
Those who made the motion, if you'll amend your approval to make that change, we can move forward.
Yep, I'll make that change.
So moved.
Okay, the motion is passed.
Actually,
Oh, wait.
I take a vote on it.
Yeah, I gotta vote. Well, no, come on, you guys. I mean, this is how I'm gonna run meetings and you guys are gonna like it. Okay, let's do all those in favor, just a thumbs up. And those not in favor? Okay, that is unanimous. See, I told you this is gonna work. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the West Glenwood Mall update and action recommendation. Is that Jen Uten?
I think Carl and I will probably work together on this. I will just say that we have heard from several developers who have been approaching the West Glenwood Mall owner about putting it under contract. And we do know that there are some developers who believe that they will get the mall under contract in the relative short term. And I think, I probably should back up just quickly and I think the last time the Urban Renewal Authority convened, there was a different purchaser, and then I think there was information out there in the public eye. I'm not sure if we sent it out to you all as well, but that deal fell out of contract, and so there is new interest from someone else in putting them all under contract. And I will hand it over to Carl if he has anything else to share.
Absolutely. I know the last time we met was way back in January of 2020, and at that time you had approved a settlement agreement with Ross. Obviously, we were in litigation with them. That settlement agreement ultimately was fully executed, and we continue to move forward under it. And I know that Ross's attorney is on as one of the attendees, and I just wanted to actually, part of this is to say thank you. That it has been a great working relationship, and I think we're in a much better position working with an important retailer in the community that Ross is serving really some important needs that we have. The outgrowth of that has been, as Jen said, is that the contract fell out. That was right in the middle of the early stages of everybody trying to figure out what COVID meant for the retail world. And so it created kind of a lengthy pause, I think, for this project. We have had some inquiries. Nothing at this point is formally under contract that we could tell you about, or that we've seen specific requests of how the URA might be able to help out. We have continued to provide information to interested parties about the mall on how we as the URA or the city might be able to assist in finding the right project and the right combination of things to make that project move forward. I know it's something that the West Glenwood community would really love to see happen. And I will tell you that Jen and I open every conversation with, well, if there was a grocery store, this would go a lot easier. So we've kind of tried to keep our eye on that as we've moved forward. Happy to answer any questions on that. I don't think that and I guess what I would recommend is that probably no immediate action. I think as we're going into the summer, hopefully we'll see this go under contract. I know that there is a sense of urgency and impatience with probably all of us on really wanting to see something great happen out there, because it's primed to have that happen. But at this point, I think my recommendation would be is to let's see how the next 60 days or so play out with if we see a new developer under contract out there. If we don't, I do think that we're going to want to come back together and talk about what our options are moving forward to try to see something happen to really see this property redevelop into what it could be, and kind of remove what really is a blight condition out there, and start to really help, I think, the West Glenwood neighborhood and all of West Glenwood really in their path forward. So with that, happy to answer any questions, but I think Jen and I would recommend no particular action at this time, but just wanted to update you and let you know that I think we're going to probably want to convene more regularly going through 21 and into 22 as things develop with this property. Thank you.
Are there any questions? I don't see hands up. Oh, wait, hold on.
Point of interest, I don't know, Ingrid, if you have administrative controls, so you can see hands, but Paula's hand is up.
Thank you. That's what I just saw. Yeah. So Paula, go ahead.
Carl, can you speak at all to the current owner's interest
In
in the sale, getting it under contract, the sale, where he might be?
I do know that they are negotiating a contract currently.
Okay.
That's all. That's the limit of the information that I have.
Okay.
I do think there continues to be, I mean, I think Mr. Woods continues to want to try to find a solution for his property. And so I think that's a positive, but I couldn't tell you any details because I don't have any, honestly.
And is not to discuss it, but to kind of ask, is there any possible annexation? Will that influence this at all?
I don't think so. I think for the moment they are independent of each other. Obviously, you know, it ultimately could, you know, have an impact, I suppose, on you know, the mix of potential tenants, but we're very far from that. And I'm going to kind of guide you back away from the annexation question.
Okay.
That is, you know, we're working on trying to set that for a hearing in front of you in your role as city council in the next 60 days.
I understand that. Just, yeah, it's just big picture is what I was looking at. Thank you.
And for the record, it looks like Shelley joined us right before we started the discussion about this parcel. It looks like she's got a question for us now as well.
Yep, thank you. And I'm sorry if you already spoke to this, Carl, but I had a question about the amendment that we did to the to the URA agreement, and particularly the piece as it addresses condemnation powers. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
I have a puppy kind of going crazy over here. So if you could speak to that a little bit, because is that amendment still valid since the sale did not go through?
It is, and that really related to our discussion with Ross over how to move forward. And we certainly have the ability, or rather the city council, potentially on the recommendation of the URA, has the ability to reinstate those powers. My suggestion on that would be is that we work closely with, in particular, just depending on how things play out. Ross has never had a good experience with that process, and so part of this is really working with them and helping to understand what their needs are. As you know, like I said, they provide a really needed service in our community, and so I think we want to be cognizant of that. But certainly, we could always, you know, if we get to the point where the URA feels like it is something they need to have back in their quiver, you all could make that recommendation to council, and council could amend that, you know, the governing regulations over you, and amend that to reinstitute that. I do think that there's no need to take action on it, you know, here in the next 60 or 90 or even 120 days. And let's see how this plays out with the contract before we do that. I think we want to be careful not to spook a potential buyer in this particular moment in time, as everybody's trying to find their footing in the retail world again.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Any other questions? So I heard Carl mention that we should probably meet more regularly. So it seems appropriate that maybe we have a discussion about upcoming meetings and what those dates or times, or even just a goal of quarterly or something along those lines. Does anyone have any feedback on that? Thumbs up to meet. Jonathan wants to meet. Okay, cool.
My suggestion would be is that kind of quarterly would be great. and that we would reach out and call a special meeting if something more timely came up that we needed to respond to, a request from a developer, that kind of thing. But I do think that it's good to get together quarterly for an update as to just kind of what's happening.
And would that be something that we need to like make an official motion to put the dates in place, or can we just throw out some dates and get them on the calendar?
I think either way would be fine. If somebody wanted to make a motion that the board should meet quarterly, and then we'll try to establish some dates that work best for everybody, I think that would be great.
I would make a motion that we meet quarterly with the next meeting being the first week, within the first 2 weeks of September. And a doodle poll to go out.
I will second that, with the only caveat I'd like to add is that if there's anything, of issue that comes out that we should address, I'd like to meet before quarterly. But other than that, I'll second.
I will include that in the motion.
Thank you.
So let's go ahead and take a thumbs up vote. If everybody, all those in favor, thumbs up. All those not in favor? And that too passed unanimously.
Is there, just real quick, is there any reason we couldn't just set the date for September 9th at this point? Is that far off enough that we could just set that date and time right now, or do people all need to go back and look at the calendars? I just know doodle polls sometimes get wrapped around the axle.
Well, if we can request that staff get us a date or even a doodle poll of a date, that might work, just since it's, we all have to pause and look at calendars. Let's do that here soon. Okay, awesome. So is there any discussion on that? I kind of paused on that and forgot that step, but if anybody has anything besides Jonathan's, we should be able to move on. Okay. Oops, wrong button. See, you guys are like, oh yeah, put her in a position where she's actually got something to do and she's a little scattered. Our next agenda item is opportunity parcels. Who wants to jump in with that?
I can just, I think maybe Jen can add something. This is something that Jonathan asked that we just throw on here. As you know, since it's been formed, the URA, it's not limited to that one geographic location. And if there are other places in our community that we need to start thinking about, I think in particular, places that have been closed and boarded up for a while, and what's happening there, and is it appropriate or not? Obviously, the Safeway site comes to mind, and there again, I think a lot of this is, I want to make sure for the public's benefit, we're thinking about this in terms of how can we help, not how can we make it harder, right? So I think that was, and I don't know if Jonathan, you wanted to add anything to that or not.
No, I just know that there's, there's, I think, a general concern in the community that we have these, maybe legacy box stores that are vacant, American Furniture, that whole wing of the Roaring Fork Marketplace with American Furniture and the old Office Depot location, obviously Safeway, and those locations haven't been vacant years, multiple years, but Safeway is going on, I think, 2, maybe even 3 years at this point. So I think that that's definitely something I'd like to put forth as something we look at doing a blight study on. Even to, like, at some point, I think this is probably premature, but there's a lot of boarded up storefronts along 6th Street, and working with the remaining owners to see, how, with Fiesta La Guadalajara going out of business, what does the remaining owners of those properties, is this something that could be a helpful tool to them? But I think just initially Safeway seems like the lowest hanging fruit, and we'll have another meeting in 90 days and we can probably maybe discuss the other ones or additional ones that anybody else might have.
And with that, I'd also love to hear from Matt Nunez, because I know that that's kind of his wheelhouse. I'd love to hear if he has any feedback, either one today, or if at our next meeting, he could just kind of give us a general update. Matt, I don't know, I have no ability to pop you up, but if you can, or someone out there can, we'd love to hear from you. I see your hand is up.
Those who may not know, Matt Muniz is our one of our staff members that does economic development.
Yes, and thank you. I don't have any of that information on hand ready for today, but that's certainly something I'd be happy to pull together in the future.
That's great. Let's go ahead and add, if everyone is comfortable, we can add an agenda item for next time that he can give us an overview. Is everyone comfortable with that? Yep. Okay, great. Good. Any additional comments or feedback on opportunity parcels? Go ahead, Jonathan.
Sorry, it's hard for me to raise my hand as administrator. What is the cost to do a blight study, Carl? Approximately.
I'd have to defer to Jen.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know what the last one cost.
I think it was about $25,000. Certainly we can reach out to some consultants who do this kind of work and ask for an updated number. I think it depends on if we were to do multiple areas, different blight areas at one time, whether there's any kind of economy of scale or not. And certainly happy to look into that.
Deborah?
And I wouldn't be doing my job as given to me by Steve Boyd if I don't say, and that is something if council wants to consider, we should think about for the 2022 budget.
Well, and before we even go there, we could also just get an update from Safeway and American Furniture to see where they're at and if they have anyone out there who's been in discussions. So
I was going for brownie points. I'm sorry.
That's awesome. Steve Boyd.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I guess I do have a question about the budget. We have to file something with the state of Colorado when we have a budget like this that comes up. And, we get the letter last year at the end of 2020 that says, yeah, you guys didn't do that. And I sent them back an email that said, we don't have a budget because we don't have any money to spend. If we are going to have a budget this year, though, I should probably get that together and notify the state. So if we expect we're going to spend anything, whether it's on this study or anything else, if somebody could let me know that, that'd be great, and I'll get that in.
Commissioner Martin and then Jen Uten.
Well, thank you. My question was answered. Do we have a budget for the Urban Renewal Authority? And the answer is no. And so we don't have any expenditures or any income. So again, if that was to go, is there a possibility of the city of Glenwood Springs investing into the URA and starting it out as a nest egg?
I'm just going to jump in from the standpoint of Commissioner Martin. I think that's a fair point, and I think probably when we originally set this up, what we had anticipated initially would have to happen. So I think from that standpoint, I guess I'd suggest maybe Deborah and Jen and Steve get together and decide, think about what makes sense and propose that budget to the commission, or at the next regular meeting.
Jen?
So I will just say quickly that in general, the way that this kind of works is that the city council would do the blight studies. Certainly something, if there were a revenue stream from Urban Renewal or Urban Renewal could pay for it. The Urban Renewal Authority plan does indicate that the Urban Renewal Authority would and the city council would employ the municipal sales tax for this as the TIF revenue stream, but not property tax. But there was no action taken to actually authorize the tax increment financing, if you will. So I think that there would be another action that would be needed related to the authorization of that. So, as it would potentially happen is that if you had a developer that was looking for, a revenue stream to do the public improvements to eliminate blight, that action would go to city council. the authorization of the sales tax, municipal sales tax for the area would be employed with that action, and then there would be a revenue stream moving forward. So I don't know, Carl, if you had anything else you wanted to add to that.
No, I mean, I kind of view them as two separate things, because I think we probably that authorization for the use of TIF funds would be very project specific. I think what Commissioner Martin was referring to is just some of the day-to-day things that might need to get done, or that the Urban Renewal Authority might want to do. You know, is there, you know, can the city drop 50,000 into an account so that we have some ability to, you know, hire a professional here or there, or that kind of thing that the commission, or the authority rather, might want to do, separate and apart from the city council.
And back to Commissioner Martin, and then Jonathan goes.
All right, thank you very much. And you're right, Carl. What we need to do is have some kind of budget, but we still have to report that. And we do need that nest egg to get started, if so. But again, that would be a contract between the URA and the city council, if that's where the funds are coming from. So I imagine that will fall on you to go ahead and to word that and to convince Ms. Figueroa that that's a good budget item.
I will do my best.
Mayor Godus.
Yeah, and I guess I would just say, as far as timing goes, if we're going to be talking about budgeting for this under the 2022 budget, then that means in theory, we're probably not going to be expending these funds until 2022. And just backing into things, I mean, we started this URA almost 3 years ago, I think maybe exactly 3 years ago, in response to a distressed property, the West Glenwood Mall. And I guess I don't want to be sitting here 3 years from now still lamenting the vacancy we have at Safeway or other properties. So what would be the process to, I'm fine with, you know, bringing it back in September and getting a report from staff about level, what criteria of blight that one or some properties, additional properties maybe they've identified that haven't been mentioned, and kind of a real report and what we want to do. But I just, maybe I'm a little impatient. I don't want to wait until January or February to authorize, to have the funds available to then contract with somebody to then do a study, to then yada, yada, yada. So am I being too impatient, or should we, I guess I'm asking that for staff, am I being too impatient, or are there ways we can move this along that are outside of waiting till 2022?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yes, a little bit, but that's who you are, Jonathan. I would say that in that time frame, just given, you know, other you know, things on everybody's plates, I think coming back in September with a list of potential properties and a recommendation from staff would be about as timely as you're going to get in any case. That recommendation would then go to the city council regarding you know, budgeting and their decision on if they wanted to move forward on any of those, depending on what the URA recommended. So I think, I know it feels like a long time, but in the course of the summer and the number of the workload that each of you individually has outside of being on this authority, as well as staff in those support roles, I think that's, you know, that's probably kind of where it's at.
Good. Any further discussion on opportunity parcels? Okay, I'm going to pop in then and just say, let's firm up our agenda for next time. If anybody wants to either reiterate what we've already said is going to be on there, or add anything. Oh, Shelly's hand was up. Go ahead, Shelly.
I just had a quick, it's kind of a comment and a question. And I don't know, as this is the first time to be part of a URA, but does a URA typically kind of set goals and maybe some priorities for the type of development that we would want to see on a redeveloped property, or do we just kind of go with what comes along? Because that might be something I'm interested in, if we can do that.
Yeah, the answer to that is both. I've worked in jurisdictions that have URAs that are a little more directed in terms of, you know, when they've identified parcels that they're working with on the types of things that they think it's appropriate to be funding, because really the big lever you have, right, is the ability to help on the funding side for public improvements, particularly. So I have seen it done that way. I've also seen it done in conjunction where the URA doesn't take quite as active of a role, but there's so much overlap between the people in the community that are on the URA and there are other roles, whether on city council or in other places, that they that those kind of work hand in hand. A lot of it has to do with when the URAs were formed. Prior to legislative change a few years ago, they were primarily just the city council sat as the URA as well as city council, and so those aligned. There was real close alignment, right? And how that happened. Now it's a much more broad-based, which I think is cool and effective. So probably coming back and talking about what you want to see is a good thing once we have identified participating properties.
Okay. And yeah, maybe that would be a good thing since we're redoing our comp plan this year. It could kind of tie in to that and what we see as needs in the community. Obviously, housing is a big one. And so if I'd be interested in seeing the URA kind of set some goals of the types of things that we need, along with, bringing in more sales tax generating opportunities.
Great.
Okay. Thanks, Carl.
And then Commissioner Martin's hand came back up.
Why, thank you very much, Madam Chair. A question to everyone on the authority. Are you an authority or are you an advisory to the city council? And I think you have to identify what you really want to be. And that's why I also mentioned budget and revenue. Are we just going to be part of the city council's decision making and only give advice to them? Or are we really going to be an active, and as Carl pointed out, an active urban renewal authority with decisions, priorities, and ability to go ahead and make contracts or recommendations to property owners, et cetera. And I think we need to identify ourselves one way or the other.
Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I would jump in and just say, I think Commissioner Martin is on point, and you are in fact an authority and you can do all of those things. That's what I was saying. It's just, I've worked with authorities that are super active and ones that aren't quite as active. And it goes to kind of what you guys are thinking about and want to be. And I think what I'd suggest is maybe that's the conversation. That is one of those items on your agenda, Ingrid, for the next meeting, to really have that conversation about what we would like, we as in you, would like the authority to be.
Great. That's a good plan. Charlie Willman.
Yeah, I was going to say what Carl said. So, just echo, I think put it on an agenda that answers Shelley's questions too. I think it's a good agenda topic, and I'm glad that Commissioner Martin and Council Member Cobb brought that up. So.
And then are you guys comfortable moving on then? I have one last question, and that is, and maybe this will come about just in our discussion next time, but would it be customary at the beginning of a meeting to get feedback from the community? Because I do see community members here and want to make sure that if they want an opportunity, if that's the format of this, is that something we would offer up? And I think I need direction from staff or council.
I would say that, just from my 2 cents, that opening up for public comment, I have no idea why any of these people are here. And I don't mean that in a bad way, just like I would be curious if people have an interest that they want to bring before this authority. They should absolutely be given the opportunity to do it in a customary way.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. So I think we can add that to the beginning of our agenda. So any other further thoughts? Well, thank you all so much as you sat through my first meeting as trying to run this. Now I've walked a mile in someone else's shoes and I have a little more compassion. And with that, if anyone wants to make a motion to wrap this meeting up and adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those not in favor? Okay, let's go ahead and enjoy the rest of this beautiful day.
Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thanks you guys. See some of you soon.